Hi, my name is Erin Moore, and I'm going to teach you a little bit about differentiated instruction for gifted students. So first we're going to start with a quote. Student differences matter, and effective teachers attend to those differences thoughtfully and proactively. So I want you to think about that for a minute and see if you agree. And then think about your colleagues and think about whether or not you think they would agree with that statement. So basically what we're trying to do is get teachers on the same page so they have a solid agreement and that they stand behind the importance of teachers valuing student differences and behind what teachers need to do about student differences. So differentiation is all about taking a look at each student as an individual and just making some adjustments to make the differences in each child's experience the best experience it can be for them. Now, I know that was a tall task, and it is much easier said than done. However, we're going to learn a few little tricks and tips that will help getting started a lot easier. So the first thing you're going to want to think about is brain research. Now, we can use brain research to improve differentiation because just understanding how a gifted student's brain works differently than a typical student is going to give you some ideas into why they could be doing some of the things that they're doing and how making simple adjustments can help them to use their brains more effectively and to stay on task more readily. So content focuses on advanced concepts and complex ideas, and learners use strategies and thinking skills with greater degrees of sophistication. So neuroscientists have concluded that gifted students have more neural connectors in their prefrontal cortex than typical learners. So what you can see from the diagrams is we have how the brain's organized, and then we also have the gifted brain, where you can see there's some misnomers here. So for instance, gifted pupils need fewer repetitions and fewer explanations, which is why they're able to move through content more quickly, and they need less practice than typical learners. In addition to that, enhanced sensitivity may lead to distractibility and to incorrect assumptions about ADHD and ADD. So a student who may be incredibly sensitive and very hyperactive may just be overstimulated, not necessarily have anything wrong with them. And the distractibility should be balanced with a degree of task persistence. So if a child is able to stay on task, if it's something that they're very motivated by, then you're going to want to think about any kind of further evaluation and diagnosis. So why would we differentiate at all? Well, every child is entitled to the promise of a teacher's optimism, enthusiasm, time, and energy. So what I mean by that is every child who walks in the door deserves the best from the teacher. And we all know that reality is different than that, but just if we're always treating the children with equal amounts of optimism as much as possible, they're going to feel it. Educators should be the champions of every student who enters the schoolhouse door, and every child deserves to learn something new every single day. And that's especially important for gifted kids because a lot of the times they're not learning brand new concepts if they're already above their peers. So that's why differentiating is super, super important for those kids who already have a lot of the content under their belts. So what we're going to do is we are going to watch a video by Carol Ann Tomlinson on why we should differentiate. So like students, teachers, so we're going to watch the video first and then we're going to talk about what we saw after the video.
There's probably a particular reason why we need to differentiate instruction now. And I think it's fairly evident to teachers. We have an immense range of readiness levels in our classes caused by a number of things, just the human condition for one thing. But we have more and more students who are being identified with learning needs learning disabilities, attention deficit disorders, autism spectrum disorders, students identified as gifted. Just a really vast range of students. And I think that's probably dramatically different than it was even 15, 20 years ago, because education is more an imperative for all students now. And the push is to keep them all there rather than to let them sort of leak out. In addition to that, we have students from so many cultures in our country now, which I think is a wonderful thing, that we are learning to live together and see the value of each student. But not all cultures come at the world in the same way, and they don't all prefer to learn in the same way. And if we are, in fact, going to make education a vehicle for success for everyone, we have to have classrooms that understand varied cultures and acknowledge them and build on them. And that gives us, in addition to the readiness in general, a second reason to move out in terms of differentiation, because kids come to us with different backgrounds. Even economics makes a big difference. And in many classrooms, we have students who are haves and have-nots. We have an inclination in school to teach the haves as though they will succeed and the have-nots as though they won't. And differentiation really suggests that it's our job to see them all as successful and then create the learning environment that does that. That's going to call for some different needs sometimes for a student who's been nurtured in every possible way and is ready to move ahead, and for a student, for example, who's learning a second language. And then, of course, kids' interests are all over the place now because there's so many amazing things to be interested in, some of them that we older guys don't always quite wrap around easily. But when we can reach out to students' interests, they're much more likely to come aboard with us. What's really interesting is most of those things we've known for decades because of our study of educational psychology, or just the psychology of learning. But we're now learning from research in the brain. The fact that if a student finds work consistently too hard or consistently too easy, if they feel detached from what they're learning, if the conditions of learning are awkward, learning simply doesn't happen. So I think I'd say we need to differentiate because the kids in front of us require it, and because our best knowledge of teaching and learning requires it. And if we mean school to be successful, if we mean to be successful professionals, we really don't have a defensible option for teaching as though all the kids are match set.
So we watched the video, and it sounds like a great idea. Differentiation is going to be what we're going to do. So, like students, teachers grow best when they are moderately challenged. And what happens, I think, with differentiation is that people get really overwhelmed, and they don't want to start at all because they're afraid of doing it wrong. So it is imperative that you don't wait, you just start. And that waiting until conditions are ideal or until you're sure of yourself yields lethargy, not growth. A great coach never achieves greatness for himself or his team by working to make all of his players alike. So you're going to have moments where you really get it and you take off, or it's challenging. So teachers are all going to learn differentiation at different paces. So what's really important is that you just get started. So we're going to watch another quick video by Carolyn Tomlinson about just getting started with differentiation.
A fairly common question among teachers who are beginning to consider differentiation to learn about it in a formal kind of way. Boy, there's a lot there. How do I get going? What do I do first? And I think the most honest answer to that is teachers are not any more alike than kids are. And some teachers get a big picture and they say, wow, see how I can change everything over the course of the next month. And I'm going to do this and then this, and it'll all fit together and it's wonderful. And other folks are looking for a very tiny little first step. I think what matters is that we start, not that we start in any particular way. There's an odd kind of thing with the classroom. I think we understand that Tiger Woods wasn't born with the golf club in his hand, hitting holes in one the first day he was out. He's become wonderful because he's practiced longer and harder than anybody else and brought his talent out that way. Somehow in teaching, we think we're supposed to get it all right next week or get it all right the first day, and if we can't be wonderful, then we just sort of give it up and quit. And clearly that never helps us grow, and it'll never help our students. So what matters is that we start, not where we start. But having said that, I think a pretty good way to start slowly is to spend some time, a month, a marking period, just studying your students. Watch them more than you ever have before. Take some notes in a systematic way. Use sticky notes when you go around the classroom observing, and see what signals they give you about what they need. Or just start with pre-assessment. Develop a simple pre-assessment, but one that really aligns with what the students should know, understand, and be able to do. And give that pre-assessment to the students when the unit begins. You'll find they're all over the place. They may not know what to do about that, but you'll have a little impetus to start thinking about it. And if we just pre-assessed in front of every unit, 2 or 3 or 4 units, I think we'd find ourselves naturally not so much saying there's this mysterious thing called differentiation, where in the book does it tell me how to start, but I see students with this need, and here's a way I can get at it. Another thing teachers worry about with differentiation when they begin is it's supposed to be the most time-consuming thing in the world. I just don't know how I could possibly do anything with so many parts. And the truth is, there are many very small things you can do that make a great difference for students. Would make a huge difference for most of our kids if we built in time every day or two to sit down with a group of 5 or 6 kids for 10 minutes to pick their brains, see where they are, extend something, reteach something in a different way than the one that didn't work the day before. That one simple thing, which takes almost no planning time, could make a very big difference. It's not so hard sometimes to be able to say, you know what, I've got some kids who are stuck on this and some others who need some work here. There's a way I could assign 2 homework assignments. Many times our homework's not something we generate, it's in a book or something anyhow. And sometimes that would give kids a chance to patch potholes, to move ahead. So kind of a nice formula, I think, for thinking about starting if you're serious about it, is to choose maybe 3 or 4 of those low preparation things like meeting with small groups in the classroom. And use those regularly. Every week, use them. And then every marking period, develop one higher prep strategy, like a learning contract or a tiered lesson or a raft assignment or something that you invent on your own. And if you did that for a full year, you'd have 3 or 4 low prep things that were absolutely second nature to you. You'd have 4 high quality, high prep things. And then you come in for year 2. Remember again, Tiger Wood didn't get it after the first year of practice. And so you take out the 3 or 4 low prep things you had and add 3 or 4 more low prep to that. Each marking period, pull out the one high prep thing from the time before and polish it a little bit and create one more high prep piece. Into that year, you've got 8 high prep things that are pretty good and 6 or 8 low prep things. If you did that for 5 years, you'd really have a repertoire, but more to the point, it would begin to feel natural to you, and it would not sink your ship. Teaching is really not a sprint, it's a marathon. And you can't sprint the whole 100 miles, you really have to kind of pace yourself. What we don't want to do is say, if I can't do it all perfectly, I just won't do anything. So starting is what really matters most, I think.